You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the February 12th, 2024 meeting of the Michigan City Redevelopment Commission. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Michigan City Redevelopment Commission regular meeting for Monday, February 12th, 2024. We'll start with the call to order and the roll call. You do roll call, I presume? You can do it.
Councilwoman Tracy Tillman.
Present.
Miss Sheila Mateus.
Present.
I have to think of everybody, sorry. Tom Domkowski.
Present.
Cherie Wilson.
Present.
Mr. Clarence Hulse.
Present.
And Bill Gertner is absent. Skylar York, director, is here. And Alan Cernak, attorney. Alan Cernak is present. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Next, we have claims for February 12th, 2024. Approve the claims. Sure. We'll do minutes, approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes for January 8th, 2024 executive session and the hybrid regular meeting for January 8th, 2024 as well. I would accept a motion to approve the minutes.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second. Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve both sets of minutes as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion has carried. Claims for February 12th, please.
Claims for February 12th, 2024. Department of Redevelopment. For payroll, we had in January 2024, we had CDBG reimbursable staff and commissioners. From our operating account, we had corporate payment systems. For Southwest Airlines for a site selection conference in New Orleans, which I just got back from. We had Great American Financial for copier fees, January 2024. Great American Financial for copier fees for February 2024. Cernak Law Offices for legal retainer for January of 2024. From the North TIF, we have Barnes and Thornburg for legal services for Bloxham arbitration period ending 12/31/23. Barnes and Thornburg for legal services station block financing period ending 12/31/23. Butler Fairman Seifert for engineering and Washington Park Boulevard streetscape for 12/1/23 through 12/31/23. We had Firm 70 for consulting for Bloxham relocation, January 2024. We had NIPSCO for EV stations, 8th Street electric service as of 1/4/24. NIPSCO for EV stations for 8th Street electric services as of 2/2/24. Cernak Law Office for legal services, North TIF, January 2024. Wallach Summers and Haas for legal services for the Transit Center for December 2023. Wallach Summers and Haas for the legal services for the Transit Center for January 2024. From the South TIF, we had DLZ for engineering of the South TIF connectivity improvement for 12/2/23 and 1/5/24. Haas and Associates for engineering of the South TIF connectivity improvement for 11/13/2023 through 12/31/2023. Haas and Associates for engineering services for South TIF connectivity improvements for 1/1/24 through 1/28/24. Cernak Law Offices for legal services in the South TIF for January 2024. And from the East TIF, we had Reith Riley. We paid our final retainage for Mott's Parkway paving for the Millennium Business Park.
Great. You want to do the second set of claims or no? This is the same thing?
This is the updated. Yeah.
Got it.
It's always updated.
Great.
Yep.
All right, you've heard the claims. I would entertain a motion to accept the claims as presented.
Motion to accept the claims as presented for February 12, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the claims for the February 12th Department of Redevelopment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion has carried. Thank you. Next, Skylar, can you give us the financial report?
Yes. Give me 1 second.
You could probably just summarize the categories, perhaps.
You want me to read? Oh,
If you just want to summarize the categories.
well, I usually just read
Oh,
this.
gotcha. Okay.
This is MC Department of Redevelopment for our balance sheet for 12/31/2023. In our cash, we have an operating account with $196,293.28. South Side TIF account, we have $8,414,535.53. Southside TIF debt reserve account, we have $336,308.50. In the Southside TIF capital account, we have $16,199.79. In the North End TIF account, we have $4,787,691.07. In the East Side TIF, we have $315,328.77. In the Northeast TIF account, we have $733,852.25. For a total of those counts for $14,800,209.19. In our loans receivable, we have County Business Loan Fund for $133,333.00 for a total assets of $14,933,542.19.
A healthy report.
Wow, that was a lot.
Do I have a motion to accept the financial report for December 31st, 2023?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the financial report as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? All right. Okay. We have a motion and a second to accept the financial report, December 31st, 2023. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion is carried. Thank you. I don't know if you're going to do this next one on the scope for Baker Tilly.
I was going to talk a little bit about it. So this is I think it's more of an addendum to our existing contract with Baker and Tilly. At the end of maybe last year's legislative period, they changed some of the laws, and there's actually some laws coming up in 2025. So at the end of this year, we'll have to do something different as well, and I'll explain what those are. But this just helps us. We have to do different notification now, and Baker Tilly helps us do all of our financial planning and reporting and any type of notification we need. They keep us legal basically with the laws and as the laws change. One of the major things that's changing at the end of this year, though, is that for 2025, we have to put together an annual budget for next year, for 2025, and we need to do that by a certain time before the end of the year. So we'll have to start thinking about what do we want on that budget and things of that nature. Some of the other things that we have to get done are pass-through notifications. There's just different ways that we have to notify basically now, just because of new laws that have come along from the legislation. So basically this is an addendum to help us do the additional things they're already doing for us, and make sure that we're, again, staying legal with all the state laws and providing the information to DLGF and things of that nature. So that's what this is.
Any comment?
I reviewed the agreement and minutes. If you want to know what the new changes in the law are, all you need to do is look at the appendix to the law, because that's everything that this is doing, is
Okay.
basically ensuring that we're in compliance with the new regulation or the new statutes that are going into effect or have gone into effect since the first of the year.
Okay, great.
You might notice the first thing in here, if requested, we can do some commissioner training for TIF annual training. I've been looking into some of that, so I think that might be kind of helpful. And then annually, we come and we present to the city council as well, and make sure they have a good they present to us, and then we go to the city council, make sure we have a grasp of what TIF is, what it isn't. how it works, and then what are the benefits from TIF.
Great, thank you. Do we need to accept the appendix then?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I would accept a motion to accept the appendix to the engagement letter with Baker Tilly for annual TIF services, and the scope of work is outlined. The document is dated February 1st, 2024. A motion, please?
I make a motion that we accept the appendix regarding Baker's Tilly.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to accept the scope appendix to the engagement letter with Baker Tilly for their annual TIF services. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion has carried. Thank you. Next, we have an addendum to the agreement for professional services with ALB Development Advisors.
Alan's going to take this, but I'm going to jump in at the end and just explain how it's different.
Perfect.
We, the commission entered into an agreement with ALB developers to assist us primarily at that point with Pine Stream, but then that was the original intent. It is subsequently expanded beyond that or moved to a different area, I guess. That agreement expired on December 31st, and a call for, I want to say it was a cap of $15,000. Was it 15,000?
Yes.
And they've only spent barely over $2 million. So all this is an agreement, an addendum to the agreement that extends that contract another 12 months. Does not change the dollar amount at all, since we've not exhausted that yet. And so what you have in front of you is the addendum to that agreement. I talked with AJ earlier today, and he is in agreement with the addendum that he and I talked about.
Yeah. And some of the differences are with Pine Street, we started out there, but once we started delving into the scope of work for Pine Street, it's a very large project, and we kind of want to do it like we did the train station, where we need to review financials. Well, if we get 20 financials in, AJ's one person, he would spend 6 months reviewing all the financials. So what we thought, if you remember at our last meeting, we approved CCS to do our Pine Street Development RFP, which has a deep bench. They have a lot of financial advisors. They have developer specialists. They have all these. They just have a deeper bench and can handle that project much easier. So what we folded AJ into, and I won't say AJ's very qualified to do these things. It just made sense that we fold him into something different, a little bit more. I wouldn't say less sophisticated by any means, but something more up his alley. So what we've used AJ for, as you might recall, or you might have seen that we just put out the prison reuse study. AJ prepared that document for us, and I think it's a very good document and a very robust document, and we're already getting hits on it. So I won't want to steal anything from Clarence, but we also have some ready grants that we're going after, and I think those are right up AJ's alley as well. And if we land some of those grants, he could help us on the rear end as well with helping us kind of making sure that we're programmatically meeting all the things that we need to do with those ready grants. He's very familiar with how state law and how the reporting and things of that work through the state. So those are things that we could fold him into where we could use him a little bit more dynamically.
Thank you. So we need a motion to accept the addendum to the agreement for the professional services with the ALB Development Advisors. Motion, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I make a motion to accept the addendum to the agreement for professional services with ALB Development Advisors.
We have a motion. Do I have a second? Thank you. Thank you, Clarence. We have a motion and a second to accept the addendum to the agreement for professional services for ALB Development Advisors. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried. Next on the agenda, we have a letter from regarding TRG.
In November 15, 2021, TRG came to the Redevelopment Commission and presented a project for the 8th Street, Michigan Boulevard property that the Redevelopment Commission owns. Based on that presentation, and their plan was for, was it workforce housing and as well as a
Workforce housing, yes.
Housing as well as in a full development area down there. And so the commission at that point agreed to conditionally hold that property or reserve that property, take it off any kind of sale offer, contingent upon TRG developing that property the way we talked about and the parties entering into a developmental agreement. We then worked for several months on developing that agreement and got as far to the point of, I think, in March of 2022, of where we had an agreement in principle, but TRG still had to do a lot of further work as related under the general auspices of financials. And then nothing has happened since then. While I don't think we necessarily have to give them formal notice that we're no longer going to hold that property because we never did approve an agreement, I think just to take the path of least resistance and not subject that to anybody else's interpretation, based on the agreement in principle that we reached, there was a notice provision to terminate the agreement, which I did last week, although not necessarily terminating it as much as saying that this item or this issue would be before the commission at tonight's meeting, and clearly the commission may be moving forward with that, and then I'll follow up with a letter then if the commission should go forth with doing that. So that's where we are at this point. You have a copy of the letter that I sent to them last week. They have received it. They're aware we're going to take this action if in fact the commission decides to do so.
Did you want to contribute anything?
No, that was a great summary. I think we just need to make sure that we're doing everything publicly, and I think that's what we agreed to in our letter anyways, was proper notification, formal notification.
So you need a motion to
Basically, the motion would be that we're no longer going to hold that property for TRG development, but rather whether it be tonight, which obviously won't be, but at some point in the future, should we get approached by a developer, or should we actually, like we're doing in Pine Street, we actually go out and seek a proposal for development, we have the now freedom to be able to do so. So the agreement tonight, or the motion tonight, would be to no longer, or I guess to rescind the hold on the property for TRG's benefit, effective immediately.
Thank you. We have a motion to rescind the hold on the property that TRG was.
Somebody.
No, I know you can't. So I'm trying to rephrase your motion. Go ahead, Tracy.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion to rescind the agreement with TRG Community Development to hold the property on 8th Street. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy.
I'd like to second.
Good teamwork. All those in favor of rescinding the property hold on that 8th Street property signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion has carried. Next, we have sanitation relief station discussions and some approvals.
So I'm going to introduce this, and then I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Steve Stanford and Mr. Mike Miladovich from the sanitary district, because they are the experts. But basically, I was approached end of last year and told about a situation we have going on, and it may not be favorable for development. So I want to hand it off to Steve, and I will also say the information that I provided you, I would say rely on what they're providing us tonight as more accurate information, which is what I handed out to you. So follow along with this rather than the old things I gave you. That was all I had at the time. We have met with the mayor regarding this project and the city engineer as well, and just kind of had preliminary discussions. But with that, I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Steve Stanford and Mike Miladovich. And thank you for being here tonight.
Good evening, Madam President and Commissioners.
Good evening.
I'm Steve Stanford with the Michigan City Sanitary District Operations Manager. This is Mike Miladovich. He is the general manager. He's my boss.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to call your attention to the screen. The unassuming manhole on the left is known to the sanitary district as the B&E manhole. And it's not affectionately known as the B&E manhole. A look inside the manhole is to the right side of this slide. what you're seeing there is an electronic water level monitoring device. This thing stays in touch with us 24/7 by telephone. When the water level gets too high in that manhole, that thing sends us an alarm. This is a collection of alarms since January 1st, 2018. You can see they're in red. There's quite a number of them. They're surcharge alarms. These are times when the water level got higher than we would like it to be in that manhole. In fact, I've been told by Jim Michaels, our Assistant Superintendent of Collections, every time we get an alarm, he actually goes there to check it. Yes. And the water level is 6 to 8 inches below the rim. Now, the picture we just looked at, you can see that manhole is about 4 feet deep. That manhole used to convey all the water from Washington Park, the zoo, and the water department. 10 years ago, roughly, that line was rerouted to the north side of the B&E boat repair shops. So the manholes are much higher and less of a threat to overflow. The problem with that old line is that the manholes were so low because it's on that lower deck of a B&E's dock. Okay. So this is the problem. The alarm all the way to the left at the top there, that's July 29th last year. We got 4 inches of rain in 13 hours. That was a real challenge for us, but be it as it may, that's the most recent alarm on that manhole. And the problem is, if you could go to the next slide, please. If I could call your attention to the siphon, which is at E Street and 8th Street. That particular sewer takes the sewage from the B&E manhole and all of the sewage that we collect east of Trail Creek itself and north of Highway 12. So all the sewage comes through that one sewer. And because of these overflow alarms, we're very concerned about adding any new customers east of Trail Creek and north of Highway 12. Looking at Beacon, I roughly counted up potential for at least 200, maybe 250 new residential units.
Can we take a pause? So that's when I enter into into the discussion of those are houses. The users he's referring to mainly are new single family houses. Could be commercial.
Yeah, I guess a blank building property. That thing is,
let's say development of property in general. Steve and I were talking today, 200 vacant lots that they all developed. Right now, I can think of at least 20 that we're working with right now, currently, that are in this area, which is going to add even more charge to the situation, essentially. So just, I guess that's kind of how I got involved in it from the standpoint of, if we're looking at housing, we're looking at development, we're looking at these things, this is something that's imperative that we need to focus on. Sorry, didn't want to steal just want to make sure we grasp the situation.
oh, very, very good, Skylar. Does anybody have any questions about the sewer map and how that works? Because next on this same slide.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm learning through this process. So if the siphon, if we're going to do the 2 barrels, then where will those go, and where would that flow to?
It flows to our 54-inch main that's along the south side of Trail Creek, okay, and then directly to our plant.
Okay, thank you.
But anyhow, the problem is we're taking all the sewage from north of 12 all the way from the Tinkers Dam lift station. That's 415 gallons per minute coming down the US Highway 12 sewer. And then, to make matters worse, the Lake Avenue sewer, it takes all of Sheridan Beach and Beach Walk. And so that sewage comes down to this jog over to the left and then back down to the back side of the Blue Chip and then to the siphon. if we can take that 1,300 gallons a minute off of the siphon, it's going to eliminate any threat of surcharging or overflowing in the B&E manhole. It would be wonderful for us, and it would basically remove all limitations on development in that area. To that end, the white lines with the arrows, this is a route that we came up with for 2 different segments. The long arrow would intercept the Highway 12 sewer at 415 gallons a minute, and then the short arrow would pick up the Lake Avenue sewer, which would be a boon to us and our capability and reliability of our sewage collection system. To that end, at the end of last year, we invited 3 engineers to propose on a design for this relief sewer, recognizing that it would be a 2-part, like Division A and Division B project. The long arrow would be the first bit, and that'll be a great help by itself. It requires a new lift station. That new lift station would be very close to the I think it's the vacated 2nd Street, just behind the old gas station, across from the new Burnham Brewing. With that lift station, well, we need that lift station for both segments of the new sewer. And like I said, the beauty of this thing is if we put that lift station in and we can get in under the rail yard there, it's going to give us tremendous relief on the B&E sewer.
Excuse me, Steve, is the lift station on the north side across from the Burnham Brewery property?
You're right. We don't have a lift station there now.
Right.
I'd like to put one in.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's actually in a piece of land that I think we own, the Redevelopment Commission owns. It's part of the old railroad station site through there. We a few years ago, I asked if Anacostia Railroad had given away property. They gave us that. We worked with them on some other projects, and that was they let us have that piece of project or property. You might recall we've talked about a trail coming through here. As discussion of this, this would go through that right of way where the trail would go. I've been assured that if we can get it offers up an opportunity to basically get a better trail, because we the way we designed it originally was going to go on top of all the old rail that's left. You'd probably have to remove a lot of the things there. And then we've discussed basically we get the pipe in, rather than concrete, we would want to do asphalt on there, where if we ever did have a fix it or something, we could dig up and then replace the asphalt, but we still would get a trail. It's not going to prevent us to do anything like that, because I know we've talked about that. So just rest assured, we're maybe offers up a better opportunity to get the trail in. So
Next slide, Andrew. This is an evaluation of the engineering proposals we received for the design work toward the end of last year. There's 2 engineers listed here. The one on the left did a very comprehensive sort of a bid. They included things like potholing and insurance for flag protection and so forth in the railroad area. And the engineer to the right wrote a very nice proposal for us, and I took the really inclusive one and added in the elements that we think we're going to need geotechnical. For example, we'll need soil borings if we're going to lay that much pipe. And so the engineer on the left was $583,600. And if we go with the one on the right, the total projected cost for design, including geotechnical work and all of that, is $390,900, $400,000 in round terms. But Scalar, you can jump in on this, but when we saw this, we called you to see if we could get a little bit of help.
yes, and then we met with Mayor and our city engineer. We all sat down. I think Mayor was very supportive of the 276 at the time.
Yeah.
And which makes sense. But from a development standpoint, I mean, you guys can see the impact if we I don't want to get to a standstill, because right now we're seeing a lot of, I mean, we haven't stopped developing. My office is very busy. I think there's like a couple thousand permits pulled last year. It's very busy. So, I don't want us to get to a point where we can't approve any more houses or any type of development north of 12 or even further out on 12 and then have to deal with this. I'd rather deal with it now, or at least get the plans in motion to be dealing with this. And we won't know until we engineer it. So,
Right. And but part of the engineer work is to do the opinion of probable cost for us.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So what I would say is the sanitary district's ask at this point would be financial assistance to pay for, I'm hoping, half of that $390,000.
And then after this, so the other idea is that once we have the engineering plans, if there is state, federal, local, any type of money, we can't go after any of that money until we know what the cost is and we have the engineering and probably some of the documents like if we go after federal, we have to have a NEPA in place. You know, we have to have these things in place to go after this money. And I think the engineering would help us identify, like, is this a state project? Is it a federal project? Is it a blend? What do we got to do? And so we're kind of stuck right now until we get the engineering done. But I know Mayor was in supportive of the 276. I know she was.
I will point out that one of the leading local engineers in the city here declined to quote on this for us. We did reach out to 3. And you can see that the engineer on the right is considerably less expensive. If you could go to the last slide, Andrew. Part of the reason is the hourly rates for the engineer on the right are considerably more modest. And with that, I'll answer any questions if there are any.
I have a question, Steve. What is the status of the Lake Avenue sewer? That handles pretty much the north end and all of that new construction and beach walk and all of that. Is it
Beach
at
walk
capacity?
handles all of Sheridan Beach. It handles the Lake Hills neighborhood.
Right. So is it at capacity? Is it still doing fine? What's
that sewer's in good shape.
Okay.
It's just when it gets to that choke point.
Yeah.
Like near B&E Marina.
Okay, got it.
That's the problem.
Basically sending everything to that choke point is what it's showing on our map.
Mhm.
Everything's going there. If we had a bypass, essentially, we'd be able to take some out before it even gets there, if you will.
Nice.
10 years ago, the EPA and the feds came to the sanitary district. Possibly the leading reason they showed up at our door was because of the B&E manhole and the manholes upstream from there that used to convey the park, the water department, and the zoo would actually overflow onto B&E's dock. And I've been told that fish guts from the Trail Creek Marina were coming out on the dock with the sewage.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a problem we need to help fix. Any motions to provide support? Alan? Yep, you look like you wanted to say something. Okay, let's continue then. Do we have a motion to provide funding to the sanitary district in the amount of, what was the final amount we decided? 276?
Not to exceed 276,000.
Same motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have support for the motion? Then we'll have discussion.
Second it.
All right, we have a motion and support to provide funding for the sanitary district relief station and not to exceed 276,000. Alan?
Just to be clear, that this is for, first of all, it's for engineering services. And second of all, the reason for the Redevelopment Commission's interest or involvement in this is that without the alternative that Steve has spoke of, we run the risk of halting any kind of development, particularly within the TIF districts, correct?
Yes.
That's all I need to make a record of. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I have a question. Engineering services, 90 days, 6 months, what time frame?
I'm sorry, Mr. Hulse, could you repeat?
The time frame for the engineering services, 6 months, 90 days?
Or even quicker,
Quicker.
with the engineer that we'd like to choose.
Can we make sure that we retain, just make sure that whenever we are engineering, I'm not saying you got to engineer the trail, but we do want to put a trail either beside or on top of there. Just make sure we're cognizant of, that's kind of why we took that Anacostia Railroad, to make sure we had a spur going to that neighborhood, to offer them opportunity to go recreate on the neighborhood on the trail as well.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Steve, I have a quick question. Where you see the short arrow route to the new proposed lift station, and you're going, through that railroad area, is there any active railroad at this time in that area?
What sort of railroad?
So where the short white arrow is, and it's coming across to the new station just south on 12. Well, just on north there, that's railroad tracks. Is there any active rail?
Oh, yes, Amtrak comes through there.
Okay, that's what I thought.
That will have to be a jack and bore with a casing.
We'll let you guys handle that.
Good idea.
Yeah, that's a challenge right there in itself. Yeah.
We've done it before.
I assume that's probably why it's broke into the two segments, is we can get this first one in. That might be a little bit easier going underneath US 12, and then we can work on the
engineering will cover both divisions of the project, so we'll have that in hand.
Yeah. Well, it might take us a little longer from permitting.
Right.
Mr. Werner, did you have anything you wanted to share?
I think talking with Steve and Mike, this is a great opportunity for us to provide this increasing capacity to get more development going in the city.
Great, thank you. So we have a motion and a second on the floor to provide not to exceed a figure of $276,000 for planning and engineering for its sanitary district relief station. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. You have our full support.
I really appreciate you guys being here tonight, and thank you.
Next, we want to discuss the plaza upgrade for some discussion and approvals.
Yes. So this has been a long time coming. We've talked about this numerous times with even the previous administration and previous redevelopment commission. And an opportunity has presented itself just recently. And that opportunity is that we actually have a directional boring machine in-house. And so that is a big relief to us, because our last estimates to get this done were upwards of almost $200,000. So the IT department has...
May I just interrupt for a second? We always have to remember, just as a citizen, that there's people out there who have no idea what we're talking
Absolutely.
about. So if we could just tell them the plaza is something we're familiar with, but if we tell them the location, a little bit of the history of how we got to this point, and how this approvals tonight will help us.
Perfect opportunity. I'd love to talk about this area. It's exciting for me. Being involved in it for many years, I've just kind of seen it kind of coming, what it is and what it could be. The plaza area was, a few years ago, probably, going on 5 years now, 7 years, Clarence, 7. Probably 7 years ago, the Redevelopment Commission acquired some buildings at the corner of 7th and Franklin Street, kind of in the heart of the Arts District. Uptown Arts District, and we proceeded to these buildings were dilapidated. One of them had a river in the bottom of it, so we had to do some serious remediation and demolition there. We demolished, and then we remediated and cleared the lots, and then we have planted the lots since then. So you might recall that we have events down there from various times throughout the year. We used to have Taste of Michigan City, and that would be a part of it. Taste was all down Franklin Street, but actually in the recent years, the plaza area call it the grassy area provided the beer garden or the stage for that, or it also provides, if you go to the Shelf Ice Brew Fest, it provides a space for events down there. The issue with the space though is that it has no water and has no electricity. So really the only people or the only groups that can use it are groups that can obviously afford to have the generators. The Taste of Michigan City, and I got these numbers from Main Street. They were very glad to share that with me and are very supportive of this for other people to use this space. During Taste, those generators were $6,000 to provide for that space, to provide the energy needed for the festival activities, meaning a stage, galley, any type of food truck acts that were down there, things of that nature. So it was a very, if you didn't have the $6,000, or if an organization didn't have the $6,000, or if they were trying to raise money, it became very cumbersome to use this space. So flash forward into kind of now where we're at. We had approached it a couple of years ago, and the price tag was, I think prior to COVID, was about 200 grand. That was with boring and getting electricity there. Well, at the time, I don't think the Redevelopment Commission really wanted to spend the $200,000. It just, I don't really, we can't really remember all the details because then we went into COVID and it was kind of put on hold essentially indefinitely. So flash forward, IT approached me a few months ago prior to the new year and said, hey, we have some time on our hands. We have this boring machine. We would gladly bore the plaza, and then you could just have it wired, and you just tell us where you want the borings to go and how many pieces of wiring. So I approached Terry Greetham and the redevelop at the City Hall. He's our events planner, special events planner. And I said, Terry, we have people that want to use this space, and he has people that want to use this space. And Clarence has been approached by people who want to use the space. Our question is, what's the minimum you got to have? And he's like, well, we got to have electricity. That's the minimum. Of water we can figure out, but electricity is the basic need that you have to have. It runs, if you have chillers for an ice rink, you got to have electricity. We can figure out water. Water will come. If you have food truck rally, whatever you do, you got to have electricity. You got to have lights for a Kris Kringle market, whatever type of market you put down, you got to have electricity. So it became imperative that be our focus right now, is to try to get electricity in there. Water, we have options with. We do have the ability to connect to a hydrant, and then the water department provides a metering system that we can use. It's a little cumbersome, but we do have water options. Electricity is a whole different story. We don't have an option for that, for the electricity. I have asked, I don't know, was that a good history of kind of the space and then where we're at now? I know that the mayor, I, and Terry, and Clarence, and numerous other organizations in the city we really want to use this space. We mow it every year. We mow it, we seed it, we take care of it. The Redevelopment Commission does. It's our space. I would love to see people use it more than twice a year. That's where I'm at. I think it is a great downtown asset. I think people would use it if they had the ability to make it easy for them to use. So I think electricity is where we're at. The idea right now is that we would put 1, 2, 3, I think 5 basically handholds in, and IT even has the handholds for us. So the boxes that are going on the ground, we'll be able to mow on them, mow over them, mow around them. They won't be invasive. We have the ability to turn off the electricity, so you're not just, people can't charge their phone, can't open up the box and charge their phone, things of that nature. But we would also bore underneath 7th Street and connect both sides with electricity. That way we can use the space dynamically. We use both sides of the street. I asked for 3 quotes, basically quoting the same thing. That's it. Did I send it with you guys? Give me a second. Oh, here we go. So what I asked for was, we are not doing the boring. I'm not quoting the boring. The boring is going to be done in-house, and it's going to be done by our IT department. What I do have to purchase, though, and I'm going to have to add this to it, is about $1,500 extra to buy a roll of 3-inch pipe that gets pulled. It's the actual pipe that provides the chase for all this electricity running. We do not have that currently. And then IT would purchase it, and then they would do the boring for us. Basically, the scope of work is to furnish 320 amp single phase underground services, a farm style service with two 200 amp panels. Farm style service is basically they're going to sink a panel at this location right here. There's a power pole there right now. We would basically come off that power pole, and then that would be the main service provider. What that farm style is just the way that it's connected to that power box, basically. We would do 8 composite underground junction boxes with removable lids marked electric. We would do 7 outlet boxes and referenced above that will have their own dedicated circuit. 1 box referenced above will solely be used as pull box. I don't know what that means, but that's what we're doing. We will have 7 50 amp, 50-foot long temporary power cords. Those will be held here in City Hall. Those are actually, so if we're doing just the electricity, that's great. But we also want to make sure whatever's being powered, that's being powered appropriately. So these cords would be held here in City Hall until we have events. We would also do 7 50 amp temporary power distribute boxes. You may have seen what I think people call them like turtle junction boxes. They look like a little turtle about this big. They use them in the park for Festival of Lights. That's what they've went to now, and they set real low. And basically what they do is they split up the electricity so it allows you to plug different things into it, essentially. But they also do it in a very safe way. And then we would do grounding for new electrical service and a ground wire throughout the complete underground system. The raceway will be basically the chase. The raceway will be provided by IT. I asked 3 different organizations to bid this project, give them the map and kind of the specifics that we're looking for, scope of work. The only one that I heard back from was Marcus Electric, and their quote was $63,058.00, which, as I told you last time, we were looking at 150 plus almost, I think it was almost $200,000 to do the boring and the electricity. So we have significantly bought down our cost. I also think that if we could get electricity here, I think you'd see more use. And I think we'd actually be able to possibly even rent the space to people who want to use it for maybe an ice rink or something like that. The city may even be sitting in a situation where they could profit from this. Not just, we wouldn't have to mow it all the time too.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the not to exceed figure of $65,000.
I think $65,000 is a great number, and I think that would cover. If there's something more, I would obviously come back. I don't like to come back to you guys at all.
Would we make it 70 just to be sure?
Let's do 65. I think we'd be good. I think we're good with 65, and then there may be some things that we have in house. IT has a lot of different things that they could maybe help out with.
Skylar, you want to consider anything for unforeseen conditions?
You are great. Sure, you bring up a good point. Sure, if you guys want to set it at 70,000, that gives us some buffer. If there is anything unforeseen, though, I will come back to you and tell you what it is before we expend the money. Just so you know, I'm just gonna let you know. I do that even when we set other ones. So I think you're right. Maybe 70. That's a good point from a construction management standpoint.
Do like a 65 plus a 5% contingency or $5,000 contingency.
Let's just set a number. Let's set it at 70 grand. If we don't use it, we don't use it. But I think that's a wiser, a not to exceed number.
Okay, do not to exceed.
And then if we don't use it, we just keep it in our coffers. Does that sound reasonable? It's a good point, though. Thank you. You've done it, right?
So is that a motion, Sherry?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would entertain a motion for a not to exceed figure of 70,000 as kind of our contingency for plaza upgrades to electric. And I suppose we don't need to specify the contractor, correct?
It will be Marcus Electric that's going to do this for us.
With Marcus Electric. I would entertain a motion.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion for the plaza upgrade for Marcus Electric and not to exceed $70,000.
Perfect. We need a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for plaza upgrades to hire Marquis Electric not to exceed $70,000 for electric upgrades to the plaza property. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion has carried. Next on the agenda, we have station block update and approvals.
I don't have a lot of updates. I will tell you that I'm told in very soon, probably maybe they've even started this week, they will start pouring all the flat work concrete, which includes all the foot foundations. They have been out there basically prepping the site, basically agitating it and putting gravel in, and now they're preparing to pour concrete. All of the pieces of concrete, precast pieces of concrete, will start coming here March 1st. They will all, I thought they were going to come in pieces of nine at a time. They are coming in 9 at a time, but they're all going to be stored, and then they will be inspected as they're before they're shipped, and then inspected on site, and then they will store them all at the Old Franciscan Hospital. They have a partnership with them, and then they will be transporting them in. I thought they were going to come, sit, transport, but actually they're going to bring them all here and then transport them up. They will be coming up Wabash Street, and they will be coming over on 10th Street, and they'll be lifted off on 10th Street in between 10th and Pine, and then stacked in place. So you'll be seeing that happen in the very near future. I can't think of anything else I'm forgetting right now. Yeah, everything else is in place. Funding's in. Funding's already signed off. Transfer of lands happened. Things of that nature. Contracts are signed. Yes.
So you don't need anything from us other. This is an update.
No approvals tonight.
Great. Thank you. We'll all be watching that with bated breath. It's been a long time coming. Next on the agenda, the South Side TIF connectivity improvement project updates and any approvals needed.
Alan, you might have some things you want. Do we have any updates on anything on Lowe's that we need to do? I'm sorry, Town Center Drive, anything of that nature?
We are still waiting. You know, if government is a bureaucracy and it gets worse and worse on each level, as the bigger the government is, we got nothing on private organizations and private companies. We are still waiting from both Lowe's and Meyer to deed the property over us. We ran into a problem with the Meyer deed. The deed was not done correctly, at least to the satisfaction of our county recorder's office. But that has been corrected, and Meyer has that. I'm just waiting to hear back from them. But in terms of who it needs to go to get the approvals, it's a mystery. Lowe's, on the other hand, the person I was working with left Lowe's, so somebody else had to come in. But I expect to hear, last conversation I had with her was last week. I expect to have that deed executed by Lowe's and back to us before the week's out. Then I'll record that, so that's one down, and we just got the Meyer one to worry about. But I think we're in good shape on that.
Okay.
So.
I don't have any updates right now. I'd say we wait till next month and get an update. We'll probably know where we're sitting. I know Cosmo and I have had some discussions about really everything is contingent upon getting that road, really. So.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda, the Your Beautiful Site solar dates and
we're just working through that one still. There are some things we're doing at a state level. We're working through some NIPSCO. I won't call them issues, just making sure that NIPSCO is getting everything that they need and that we're providing them a proper scope of work for the magnitude of the project. And just what we're talking about, syncing wires and where do we start syncing utilities, you know, how far out do you go? How far back do you go? I'm just trying to organize some of those things right now. We've got I think we've already negotiated our transformers and locations and things of that nature. So we're just, it looks like they're getting their financing in place. And like I said, there's some things that the state we're working on, and sounds like everything's moving forward. It's a big project, so there's a lot of moving parts.
will say that Sola Sub, you want to come up there?
Oh yeah, I forgot we're working on traffic study.
Yeah.
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 That's a big one.
Yeah, so Sola Sub for.
Could you
the
introduce
traffic-
yourself for those who
Tim
might
Warner,
not?
city engineer. Sola Sub for traffic studies has come to me and asked for information. That was on Friday. So we're getting her as much traffic counts as we can. And today I sent her the contacts for all the NDOT permitting and things that might be necessary in US 12. So they're moving ahead with traffic studies.
Yeah,
And started. So that means at least things are moving forward there.
they're spending money on studies and architecture, and then also keep in mind traffic study is very important because we're also trying to talk about realigning Washington and Second Street, taking this opportunity to make that realignment happen. So it's very important that we know what we're dealing with respect to traffic.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Anything else, Alan, I'm forgetting? I don't think so.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Report by our legal counsel.
There's two things. One, for the record, there was an executive session prior to this meeting. No items were discussed that were not permitted by the open door law. No decisions were made. The second thing is a follow-up to or a follow-up report with respect to our trench interceptor. Not so much with that aspect of the project, but with respect to continuing to attempt to capture money from the polluters. Aaroncraft has been identified, and their subsequent property owners all have been identified and have been included as the principal polluters. We have a default judgment against Aaroncraft, not in a specific dollar amount, because at the time that we got that judgment, we did not know what the total dollar amount would be for environmental recovery costs. So we have a better idea now. As you know, we're at the last stage of cleaning up that entire Trail Creek property with the hopefully working successful trench interceptor. We have stumbled across, not even stumbled, we have been continue to searching for insurers for Aaroncraft, which has been a nightmare scenario that has gone both from Michigan City, LaPorte County, New York, Wisconsin, and then all the way over to where the original owners live in India. We have finally found a new insurer. We believe we have a new insurer that represented them in a dispute that Aaroncraft had with the city of LaPorte 25, 30 years ago. And they were represented by the law firm of Ice Miller. So our primary attorneys with Plew, Shadley, Rachel, and Ron had contact with Ice Miller. They do indicate that there was an insurance company that they were representing in that dispute with the city of LaPorte, that they were at the same time frame as around when Aaroncraft was polluting our land. So what Ice Miller is requesting, they will do a file search to identify the insurance company that will allow Plew, Shadley, Rachel, and Ron to go after them kind of in a proceeding supplemental manner or a collection manner. Ice Miller is requesting $1,500 to do a review of the files, not to exceed $1,500. And what I'm asking for tonight is approval to enter into an agreement with Ice Miller Law Firm for the cost of $1,500 to do a file review and identify potential insurance carriers that we can then proceed with collection action against Aaroncraft.
So what do you need from us this evening?
A motion to approve entering into an agreement with Ice Miller, not to exceed $1,500 for record search, file search of insurance companies representing Aaroncraft.
Okay. Anyone willing to make a motion to that effect? $1,500, not to exceed $1,500 to Ice Miller in a summary.
I make a motion to approve not to exceed $1,500 for record search files for Ice Miller. Ice Miller.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Ice Miller receiving not to exceed funds for this I guess you call it a pardon me?
Files.
A file search. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No nays. The motion is carried. Mr. Director, do you have any additional reports for us?
I do not tonight. Just really appreciate you guys considering the plaza. I think it'll be a big win for our downtown and for the city.
Thank you. Any public comments? Members of the public? There's so many of you here this evening.
Yep. Scott Mellon, 200 Kenwood Place. Regarding the lift station, it sounds like a great project, really clearly necessary to stay ahead of development. But at 400,000 or so for engineering, they're gone, so they can't answer. Any idea of the expected cost of those lines in the lift station?
Yeah, so you could take that. I mean, if you want, like, in a roundabout way, yes, you can basically say that that's 10%. You know, if engineering costs are typically 10%.
So
prior to COVID, no, post COVID it may be more, but you can guesstimate 10%.
So very possibly a $5 million project.
Unfortunately, it's not cheap to do these things.
Yeah.
Hence why I want to do it now rather than later.
No, proactive is good. Would TIF funds be available for that type of project?
Well, yeah, potentially, yes. The answer is yes. And what we like to do though is not pay all of it out of TIF because we don't want to drain our TIF revenue, but the opportunity exists in that there's a lot of infrastructure built right now, even at a state level. Could we use TIF to match? And maybe that's 10% of whatever we go after, you know, or maybe it offers up opportunities to just chase other money.
Great, thank you. Second note, the electrification of the plaza is very good idea. I've wondered myself why it's not utilized more, and the lack of infrastructure indicates why. And as if I recall correctly, a previous director came up with like a $20 million plaza redevelopment, which seemed insane, I think, to most of us. So, $70,000 is a really well spent money, I think, to make that more useful. I'm concerned that 7 boxes plus 1, given it's both sides of 7th Street, I don't know how that would be divided, if that would really be adequate. You know, would 2 boxes be on the south side of 7th? And
I think 2 boxes are going to go up on the north, and then the majority will stay on the south because most people use the south side more. But I don't want to like limit it, so I kind of the way we figured it out, or not that we figured it out, the way that we thought about it was, how are people using it now? How are they being used? What are the events having down there? And actually, we talked with the people who throw those events. How much power do you use? How big are your generators? How much does it cost? You know, how much power does a stage use? How much power does a typical food booth use? So we kind of thought about it in those just kind of layman terms.
On the same note, given that you've done so well on saving costs there, I don't know if there'd be any intergovernmental charge on the boring. I don't know if there's going to be something there that wasn't accounted for.
We already have an agreement with them for some previous work that we provided for them.
What grading are you saying?
And we actually purchased some of their underground equipment for them previously, and they're just kind of repaying it's an opportunity for them to reciprocate.
Given that you've been so cost efficient with the electrical, I would suggest you might look at a couple water stations of some type.
Yeah.
Given that you've made room in the budget. My last thing, I'm trying to be quick. On the 8th Street Interceptor deal, it was my understanding that it's roughly a $1.6 million project, but that we had received about $1.6 million in previous insurance settlements.
The entire Trail Creek cleanup, starting from Michigan Boulevard all the way down to 8th Street and that whole area in there, that was going to be a $1.6 million cleanup, $1.8 million cleanup, which is what we received money for. But that $1.8 million includes budgeting for the trench interceptor, which we had allowed for was anywhere between 300,000 and 900,000. So it came in at 600,000. So that still is within that 1.6, 1.8, although we have exceeded that with the trench interceptor, which is why now we go after aircraft to try to supplement that even further.
But we have received a $1.8 million.
Oh, yeah, a long time before we even started on the cleanup.
That's great. And
3 years ago, maybe.
We've been doing other things. We had to do vapor intrusion testing in all the houses. We had to do we do constant basically monitoring. We actually did vapor intrusion and even to the sewer system actually. So
Right.
we did. So we had other things we had to do on top as part of this It's been a build up, and this is kind of the final piece we have to do.
And that final piece is the $600,000 project that includes relining the sewer on 8th Street and a new line across 8th Street to the 54-inch drop or whatever. And that's progressing. It's on budget. Great. Thanks very much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak at this time? Hearing none, let's move on. Commissioners' comments? Any commissioners wish to speak?
I just have a quick comment. Thank you, Madam President. Brian. Mr. Minnick. I just want to say when Skylar mentioned what a pulley was, he had me out in the field one day on Barker, and he showed me what a pulley was. So when you said that, I knew exactly what you was referring to. So thank you.
Any other members of the commission wish to speak? All right, hearing none. Our next meeting date is March 11th, 2024. And if I don't hear any complaints, we will adjourn and go home for dinner. Thank you, everyone.